Hey everybody, it's Chase with American Vintage Adventures again, and today we are here to discuss all things Halloween Horror Nights 2023. Universal made a big drop today. They told us what all of the houses are, the scare zones are, the shows. We are going to check them out one by one. We're going to go in detail. We're going to talk about it, where they're going to be placed on the map. We're going to cover the scare zones, each of the houses, some of the peripheral stuff like the hotels that are going to be part of the event and decorated and have their own little things going. Some little hints to merchandise drops. We're going to talk about those. We're going to talk about some of the food maybe that's going to come out. And I'm going to give you tips and my thoughts on this event for first timers, because believe it or not, even as someone with a Universal and Disney vlog and someone who has spent the last 15 plus years making horror movies at the independent level with some of your horror great icons that I've gotten to work with and been so blessed, this will be my first time going down to cover HHN, and I am so looking forward to it. I'm going to help you get ready. I'm going to talk about all the houses, the scare zones, the history, how they connect together, what I'm looking forward to the most, and why. Maybe even give you a couple of glimpses into some of my horror films. And we're going to cover this event in every way possible before we even get there to get that hype train going. I am so excited, and I am ready for us to get in there and do this. So let's get to it.
All these innocent people are going to die. And it's all going to be your fault. Tick-tock, son. Tick-tock.
All right, so we are going to talk about everything. Like I mentioned, we're going to go house by house. We're going to go scare zone by scare zone. And we're going to talk about everything that's there and that is confirmed, and some things that didn't get confirmed today, surprisingly. And we will talk about all of it. I think we are going to start with the scare zones, because the way they have announced them, they seem to be connecting everything together. And maybe that's going to give us an idea of who our park icon is for this event. Maybe there's one, maybe there's two, but I think if you really look at it, you got an idea. Now, the other thing that the scare zones tell us, as well as some of the houses with their dates, is that these are going to cover different periods in time. Now, someone who, like me, who is a horror person and loves Halloween and all of that, but also as a big 80s fan and 50s fan. I love the pop culture, and I'm an old history teacher, so I love this look through different time periods, and that gets pulled together with the scare zones. So first up, near the first part of the park when you walk in, the main area is going to be Dr. Oddfellow's Collection of Horror. Now, Dr. Oddfellow's Collection of Horror will lure you into Halloween Horror Nights with the promise of immortality. As he lifts the veil on all of the horrors to come, you'll soon realize you may not even survive the night. To me, what this sounds like is the area when you come in, and this is going to be a little bit of everything brought together. So that you might see different scare actors and different theming from all the different scare zones and houses may intermingle right there and give you a taste of what's to come. I also think that this starts to tip us off about an icon. But that's kind of interesting. I think it's going to pull everything together, blend everything together there. All right, so our next scare zone is the Dark Zodiac. So if we go to the right and we head over to Hollywood, we are going to be in the Dark Zodiac scare zone. Now, at the Dark Zodiac scare zone, Dr. Oddfellow has entered a dark dimension to harness the power of the Zodiac and live forever. He twists the signs into malevolent beings who foretell your doom. As his star rises, yours falls. Now, again, we have a tie-in with Dr. Oddfellow. Now, so far, we haven't got into any different time periods or decades, but that's coming. Moving along to our next scare zone is the Jungle of Doom Expedition Horror. Once again, we have Dr. Oddfellow to thank for this. In the 1920s, Dr. Oddfellow ventured deep into the darkest jungle, performing horrific experiments on nature. Now his monstrous creations are running amok, and they're coming after you. No, seriously. Dr. Oddfellow again, but see, now we've got a time period set. So this is the 1920s. All right. And that's going to be on down in the Central Park area. So if we work our way around to the next scare zone, sort of in order, if we loop around through Springfield, and we're going to talk about something that wasn't announced in just a second, but if we loop around through Springfield and come back around to the San Francisco area, we are in our next scare zone, which is Shipyard 32 Horrors Unhinged. So in this area, you are going to enter a 1940s San Francisco shipping yard full of mysterious crates and cages bearing Dr. Oddfellow's symbol. Now, beware, his nightmarish oddities have now escaped, spreading fear and chaos in their wake. So again, now we've jumped 20 years into the future. We've gone from the 20s to the 40s, and we're in this shipyard area, which I'm hoping is similar to has some of the vibes of the house from last year, Dead Man's Wake. I'm hoping that vibe is there, sort of like all of that type of vibe. And we're in the 1940s, so we have a certain era, so things are going to look a certain way there. And again, we have Dr. Oddfellow tying it together. So Dr. Oddfellow, in my opinion, he has to be an icon this year. The question is, will we see Jack as an icon? More on that in a minute. Now, if we continue on to the next scare zone over into New York, we have Vamp 69 Summer of Blood. So, and the 1960s Music Fest in a small New York town, you'll jam to popular bands with fellow concert goers until Dr. Oddfellow unleashes vicious vampires on the audience. And they're out for your blood. So we've got sort of another Dr. Oddfellow connection, another decade. We've jumped 20s at a time here. So we've got the 20s, 60s, or 20s, 40s, and 60s represented in these scare zones. And this one is going to be sort of like a Woodstock type thing, 69, Summer of Love, all of that. For all you Buffy fans out there, I remember this episode where Spike says he was at Woodstock. He fed on a flower person and spent the next 2 hours watching his hand move.
I was actually at Woodstock. That was a weird gig. I fed off a flower person, and I spent the next 6 hours watching my hand move. So, who do you kill for fun around here?
I love Spike. Anyway, so those are our 5 scare zones, but I think they connect overarching to all of the houses too, especially with the decades, and we'll get to that, and I'll bring it back up in a minute. But Dr. Oddfellow, ladies and gentlemen, he has to be an icon this year. I'm just wondering, since we have Dr. Oddfellow to thank for Jack's existence, if we are going to get Jack this year as well. I hope so. I hope we get a good glimpse of him. But that is our scare zones. Now, what was not mentioned in these scare zones was any type of hordes. So there have been rumors on the speculation map and rumors for weeks that we would get a Megan horde in Springfield and that we would get Death Eaters in Diagon Alley. Now, traditionally, Diagon Alley isn't part of Halloween Horror Nights at all, but there's been a lot of speculation we would definitely get Death Eaters because there have been like set pieces and things like that going up in Diagon Alley. But there was no mention of it. That doesn't mean there's got to be something because they're putting these set pieces out in Diagon Alley. So there has to be something. I still think the Death Eaters are coming. There was no mention of the Megan horde. Now maybe they're just not going to mention these things, and we get there and they're going to be there. That would be my guess. I wouldn't put 100%. Belief that there's going to be a Megan horde. I just don't know about having Megan and Chucky, but you never know. I expect there to be, I would think there'd be something in the Springfield area, but you never can tell. They just didn't announce the Death Eaters. Doesn't mean they're coming. I think they're coming. Something is coming to Diagon Alley, or they wouldn't be wasting their time putting in new set pieces and taking other things away, like the photo op area for the motorcycle and sidecar is gone because they need the room. So something is coming to Diagon Alley, but it wasn't mentioned. That covers all of our scare zones. We are going to get into the houses themselves here in just a second and see how they all tie in.
So, who's next?
I'll be going to hell. Hell, I'll be going to hell. Girls and boys will make some noise. They'll all be burning in hell.
All right, so it's time to get into our 10 houses that are officially announced. I'm very excited about some of these, and some of these we'll talk about at the end. What I'm the most looking forward to, and some of it might surprise you as to what I am. I'm excited to be a part of it because it's Halloween Horror Nights, but they are not my favorite concepts for houses. And some probably will surprise you that are. First, let's just talk about the ones that we have already known for a while that are coming. We are definitely getting the Stranger Things house. It's Stranger Things 4, Try to Escape the Curse of Vecna. You'll need your squad to resist Vecna's gruesome curse. Like 11, now's your chance to stop him once and for all as you take on the scariest season of Stranger Things yet. Now, listen, I am a huge Stranger Things fan. What's not to love? I am a massive 80s nerd. 80s pop culture is my thing. I'm an 80s kid. I grew up on 80s horror, 80s movies. My goodness, to me, Stranger Things is like the Goonies meets the X-Files. I mean, Stranger Things is it for me with all the pop culture references in there. I love it. I'm looking forward to that house. We've known that one's coming for a while, so let's grab on to a couple of others. The next house is the Chucky house. Now, that was the very first house announced, and it was announced way back, like at the end of last Halloween Horror Nights. So we knew that Chucky was coming, and Chucky's another one for me that goes back to the 80s. Now, I have to admit, I was never the biggest Chucky fan growing up in the 80s and in the 90s. Chucky, I don't know. I was huge into Nightmare on Elm Street and Friday the 13th and probably like a bunch of other horror movies that you may not even know of. But Chucky, he's fun. He's fun. I mean, I'm going to enjoy the house, and I hope maybe that they have. It would be cool if they could use some puppets and really make it look like Chucky. But I'm interested to see what they do with it. But that's another house that was confirmed, so we knew that was going to be there. Another IP house that is confirmed is the massive IP announcement of The Last of Us. Well, The Last of Us, if you don't know, it is based on a video game and then now is a hit HBO series. So it is going to be a massive draw. The monsters are interesting with the cordyceps and everything. Now you're rethinking eating mushrooms of any kind. But The Last of Us house is confirmed, and we've known that for some time. this is where I'm going to shock you. I love video games. I love horror movies. I love horror TV shows. This house is maybe one of the ones I'm the least excited for. I know that's probably a hot take. It's probably like shocking to so many people. But I watched the show, and I'm someone who's a writer and a filmmaker of horror films. I've had scripts published, and you can find those on Amazon. You can find me on IMDb. It just doesn't do it for me. The show is very slow. Playing the game is much more fun. The show is slow, and I'm someone with infinite patience for story to develop. Like I just am. But it's not my favorite. I'm definitely going to do it. Of course, I'm going to cover it. I'm going to do it. It's going to be fun to do, but it is not actually going to be on the top of my priority list. But it is one of the houses that we knew was going to be there. And so here we are. So those three we already knew about. Chucky, The Last of Us, and Stranger Things. Another one that has been circulating for a while is The Exorcist. Now, this one confused me a little bit because I thought, well, it hasn't been that long since an Exorcist house was done on the original, of the original Exorcist. And if it's based on the new movie, that movie's not even out yet, and it won't be out until HHN is almost over. So, but it's a Blumhouse film, so, there's that connection there with Halloween Horror Nights. So I'm thinking, this one doesn't really make sense to me. I kind of didn't know if I believed it on a lot of the speculation maps just from a timing standpoint. But lo and behold, we have The Exorcist Believer, and it is a house based on the yet-to-be-released Blumhouse Exorcist film. So it's The Exorcist Believer, an evil reawakened. 2 missing girls have been found with no memory of what happened to them. But wherever they went, the ultimate evil has returned with them. Enter the most terrifying scenes from the new Blumhouse film. So, I'm sorry, every time I start reading like a horror movie, because I grew up in like the 80s, you always had the narrator in every trailer. And now they must survive. That guy who was always narrating every trailer. So every time I'm reading these, it goes through my mind. But so we have an Exorcist house IP based on the new Blumhouse film. I'm looking forward to it. I mean, Exorcist creeps me out. Most people don't know, but that original film is actually based off of a true story in a book that was covered in a book. So there's actually documented footage with that. That's creepy. Okay, so I'm in 100%. So those are 4 big IP houses that we know about. Now on to the 5th house, which is one that is kind of blowing my mind. And I want to say that I'm really interested in this one, but I'm also very afraid that this one could go the wrong way. And that is the Dueling Dragons, Choose Thy Fate. Well, if you don't know, the Dueling Dragons was a intertwining roller coaster that used to be at Islands of Adventure back when I always rode any type of roller coaster. And I loved it. I love the theme. Like I said, I'm an old history guy. I taught world history. So all that mythology and everything in the lost world, I loved it. So I'm hoping that it's really awesome. I just keep trying to play through my mind, how in the world are they going to do dragons in one of these houses? It could, in my opinion, I'm nervous for this house because I want it to be really good. And I think it could be absolutely next level epic, or it could fall on its face. And I'm hoping it's next level epic. So, Dueling Dragons, Choose Thy Fate. No matter who you choose, you lose. 2 warlocks of great power were turned into dragons after trying to take Merlin's spellbook. Now, you and your friends are caught in their epic battle. You must choose a path and a victor. So what that tells me is maybe they're going to get out of it without having like too much needing too much large dragons, or they're going to make them smaller dragons. I don't know. But there's a lot of potential here for this one, and there's a lot of potential for it to go the other way. So I'm nervous and excited and hyped to see that one. On to our next original house. Our next original house is actually one that I'm pretty excited for, and it's another one that ties in those decades again, because it is Yeti Campground Kills. So Yeti or not, here they come. You and your friends are about to venture into the 1950s campground, overrun by huge menacing Yetis who rip apart anyone who gets in their way. You must flee to the Ranger Tower to escape. Now, see, I think this is cool. To me, this is like an old horror movie I would have watched as a kid. And then we're bringing the decades back in. So now you got the 1950s. So when you factor in the scare zones, you got the 20s, the 40s, the 60s. Now we're throwing in one that's the 50s. Stranger Things is set in the 80s. So we've got a lot of decades going on here, and I really like that a lot. I'm excited for this one. I kind of hope it's one of those where it's kind of colder in there and dark and feels like you're outside at nighttime, but you're inside. And I'm really looking forward to that one, believe it or not. The next house up is Blood Moon Dark Offerings. Now, when I first heard that title being thrown around for a house, without any kind of icons to look at or anything, I immediately hoped for a werewolf house. I love werewolves. They scare the crap out of me, and they've always been like one of my favorite monsters. They're just so visceral and everything, and there's no reasoning with them, so it's very, very creepy and scary to me. So I was hoping for a werewolf house. But it's actually another time period type house, so we're factoring in more time periods here. So Blood Moon Dark Offerings is going to take you back in a colonial era village. Moon worshippers witness a blood moon at their fall festival. They take it as a sign to hunt down any non-followers, including you and your Scream Squad. I gotta stop doing that. I can't help it. I'm a campy horror guy. So there was a lot of it talking about this was witches and everything, and maybe it is, but it doesn't actually say specifically anything about witches. It just says moon worshipers. So I don't know if this is a witch thing. I mean, people were saying it's Salem, but this is actually going back to colonial era here too. So, I don't know, but we've got another time period, a historical thing, something that's scary. I'm in. All right, so the next house on our list is an original house too, and I think it solidifies my idea that Dr. Oddfellow is an icon for this year, and maybe we get Jack, because the next house is Dr. Oddfellow's Twisted Origins. Your soul is a price he is willing to pay. You won't be able to resist going inside Dr. Oddfellow's menacing menagerie of twisted oddities, but the price for you and your friends is steep. The cost of your souls to feed the immortal power of Dr. Oddfellow. So look, Dr. Oddfellow's fingerprints are all over this HHN. Of course, we know that we have Dr. Oddfellow to thank. If you don't know that story, Jack became a murderer. He showed Dr. Oddfellow that he was a murderer. Dr. Oddfellow had Jack murdered. Jack came back from the dead, killed Dr. Oddfellow. So Dr. Oddfellow is all over this thing. He's like an icon already, just the way he's tied into all this. And then I'm hoping because of that, we're going to see some Jack. So I'm looking forward to seeing this sort of twisted house, although this kind of thing really freaks me out in a whole other way. But that is Dr. Oddfellow's house. Now we are down to our last two houses, original houses, and they are the two that maybe I am the most excited for, and people will probably be surprised to hear that. But the next house up is Universal Monsters Unmasked. So 4 Universal Monsters, 1 New Nightmare. Descend into the Paris catacombs, where you and your squad will face a new horde of monsters. Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, the Phantom of the Opera, the Hunchback of Notre Dame, and the Invisible Man. So there was a lot of talk about this house, being featuring Dracula and maybe Phantom of the Opera and this and that. When now, as a historian and literature person and horror person, when I heard Paris, I was really hoping for Phantom of the Opera and Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, and I figured the Hunchback would probably be in there. Now, I was still kind of hoping Dracula would be in there. He's not. It doesn't say anything about Dracula. But Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, Phantom of the Opera are like two of my favorites. And the Paris catacombs themselves are a creepy-ass place. So if you're building that in there and you're throwing these Universal monsters in there, look, a classic Universal monsters, I am in. I am 100% in. I am super excited for this house. Really, really looking forward to that house. All right, so the last house on the list is the one that I am the absolute most excited for, and it is original house. It is The Darkest Deal. Fame is fleeting, fear is forever. Blues musician Pine Straw Spruce will have to face the music after meeting with the Collector and trading his soul for musical glory. You and your squad will learn the terrible price of fame. Now, this is based on the old Robert Johnson story, and it's not just Robert Johnson. Look, that Robert Johnson claimed that he made a deal with the devil, and almost every one of his songs related to that, and somehow Crossroad Blues, Hellhounds on My Trail, like all of that related to him. He just had a feeling he believed that he did that, and that he was going to pay for it. And of course, he died when he was like 27, and that started the 27 thing. And a lot of these musicians died when they were 27, and things like that. So this story actually inspired me to write and create my own movie. There's actually a movie that's sort of based on this with Ralph Macchio called Crossroads. And that's what this reminds me of, where you go to the crossroads. Now, they don't call it the devil, they call it the Collector. But in the history, the mythology of the musicians that claim they did this, it's they went to the crossroads and made a deal with the devil.
Yes, sir, been a long time. You were about 17 last time we saw each other. One night on this old crossroads, wasn't it? What can I do for you, Willie Brown?
I come to see you, tell you the deal's off.
Oh, no. According to this here piece of paper, the deal's still on.
I've actually been to the crossroads where supposedly Robert Johnson did this many, many years ago. I think it's like right outside Yazoo, Mississippi. I can't remember exactly. It's been a really long time. I'm old. But it's very creepy. I wrote a movie, and we did a movie set in the 1970s called Dark Road 79. Completely, based upon the same type of thing.
Mr. Ian Cash. Well, ain't nothing free, boy. Everything's got a price to it. You'll see.
Because I just love it, and I love the music and the whole vibe. The devil went down to Georgia, the crossroad, like the real feeling of that. People, and the symbolic of giving your soul up, giving yourself over, and trading a lot of what you are for fame.
How many of you have seen Stacey or Jenny since Tyler was with them?
You'll all be facing your eternal damnation soon enough anyway.
I love it. I'm really looking forward to that house. That is my number one. So if you're looking for a countdown for me of what I'm most looking forward to in order. Number one for me is The Darkest Deal House. I went to the trouble of making a whole movie over that story. I love it. So that's number one. Number two is probably the Monsters Unmasked house. I love just you classic Universal monsters. Number three for me is Stranger Things. I love Stranger Things. 80s pop culture. It's got everything for me. The next one, Yeti Campground Kills. To me, that sounds like a good old schlocky, scary, old school horror movie. It's set in the 50s, another decade that I love that's very iconic. So that one's right up there for me. Next would probably be The Exorcist house. I think that's going to be genuinely scary, probably. So I really I'm interested to see that. Then it kind of gets lumped. The Dueling Dragons I would probably put next. I have a lot of hope for it and a lot of worry at the same time. Dr. Oddfellow, because look, his fingerprints are all over this park. That's next. And then, probably the last few are the Blood Moon Dark Offerings. I mean, I'm really looking forward to the house. It's set in colonial times, everything. It's hard to really tell what it's about. It doesn't say specifically anything about witches or anything, just that they're moon worshipers. And then I know it's a hot take. It's shocking, but probably at the bottom of the list for me are Chucky and The Last of Us. Chucky has been done so much since I was a kid. I've seen so much Chucky, and he never was quite up there with the other horror icons to me, like Michael Myers or Jason or Freddy Krueger. All those, he never, or It especially. I would love to see an It house, man. I love It. He wasn't ever up there with those for me, but he was always fun and goofy, so he's there. And The Last of Us, I just can't get into it the same way as everybody, but I'm looking forward to seeing the house. Again, putting one at number 10 doesn't mean that I don't like it. It just means that I'm more excited for these others, but I'm excited for all of them in the event as a whole. Universal also announced with this the return of the Nightmare Fuel show. So it's Nightmare Fuel Revenge Dream. The show that sparked your darkest dreams has reignited. Let your nightmares burn out of control as the pyro and aerial performers fire you up to the beat of metal and electronica. So this seems like it's going to be, another high energy, horror, burlesque, fire, pyrotechnics, just create heavy metal, crazy show. So that's the show they announced. They didn't announce any show specifically in the lagoon. There's no show actually announced for that. Doesn't mean there won't be one. They just haven't announced it yet. And then dining and shopping. So they've announced now a lot of the dining, and they've announced a special where you can get a sneak peek taste test of the dining. I think the ticket's for like $159, not counting a ticket to the park. And that's going to take place like August 12th through 26th. I have to get that on there for you. So we know there's going to be a lot of good food. I cannot wait to eat all of the food. Of course, the Twisted Tater for sure will be back. It's an icon. I can't wait to have that and try it. Try all the foods and drinks. I mean, I already bought cards earlier this year to save and use. And I'll probably be buying more gift cards to use because you still get your discount. So it's hard to beat. And then shopping, there's been a very limited amount of merchandise so far. So initially they came out with the See You in the Fog stuff, but they pulled the shirt away or they sold out of it. So there's not a lot in there. And then there's just been like some icon or IP shirts for like Stranger Things and The Last of Us. But if the picture they released today of some of the merchandise, now it's not for sale yet, it's not listed on there, but the picture that is showing of the Halloween Horror Nights Never Go Alone stuff, and you can see it here. if this merchandise, if this type of logo is on stuff, man, count me in. I'm going to go broke buying stuff in here because this is very cool looking. I really like it, and we'll wait and see as more merchandise is dropped as we go. Finally, a couple of the hotels are getting in on the act. A couple of the resorts. Now, I personally can't wait. I'm staying at Cabana Bay. I love Cabana Bay, so this announcement was awesome for me. You can run, but you can't hide. Keep the screams going at Universal's Cabana Bay Beach Resort. Pose for photos at Chucky's Twisted Playground, a photo illusion experience based on the USA and Sci-Fi TV series. Features 5 uniquely scary photo opportunities. Chucky's Twisted Playground is exclusive to guests at Universal Orlando Resort Hotels. You have to have your room key to get in. Plus, Drink in Terror at one of the following spots featuring Halloween-themed specialty drinks. You can get those at the Spooky Swizzle Lounge at Cabana Bay Beach Resort, or the Spooky Sunset Lounge at Universal's Endless Summer Resort, Dockside Inn and Suites. Try specialty Halloween-themed cocktails at all 8 Universal Orlando's resorts and at other select locations. Also, Universal Gallery, Monsters Gallery of Legends. Be sure to set aside time to visit the other 6 Universal Orlando hotels as you go on a photo hunt to find different Universal Monster photo opportunities waiting for you in the hotel lobbies. So it sounds like, now Cabana Bay last year had a lot set up, and they are kind of leading the way again with the most stuff set up, but it sounds like all the resorts are getting in on the act of having photo ops and different things like that set up for HHN to kind of carry it on into your resorts when you stay there. I am looking forward to it. It's here now. I mean, it's only about a month or so away from me going. I'm going in early September, like the 6th through 10th. I'm just going to take it all in for 4 or 5 days there and go HHN all the way and cover it all for you guys. I'm going to bring in a bunch of videos on that and bringing them from the perspective of someone who is not only a huge fan, but someone who makes horror for a living. So it should be a lot of fun. I am excited out of my mind. I'm a content creator, but I'm watching everything I can get my hands on, and you should do the same. Get pumped up for it. It's here. This is concrete. We'll update if anything else comes out. But until next time, this is Chase with American Vintage Adventures saying have a great ABA day, and I'll see you real soon. Bye-bye.
Universal's Halloween Horror Nights.